Chair Meeker, we're ready to begin when you are.
All right, I think we have all our board members here. I think we have our staff. All good? Let me see, Kristen. Oh, Kristen. Okay, so we got everybody. So I guess with that, let me go ahead and call this session. We want to get the application board into session. And before we start, do everybody a favor, for everybody out here and in internet land, is to kind of take a second to mute any of those devices that will beep or off or whatever. That would be appreciated. Okay, so board members, you had a chance, I know that Andrea sent out the last board minutes for your review. And I believe that is the only thing we have with the consent agenda. So let me take a quick ask if anybody's got any thing that they would like to amend or discuss in the minutes for the last meeting. With that, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? We have a motion, and we have a second motion. Second by Tom, second by Tom, by the whole table. If all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to
One question, I'm not officially my oath of office is not been received by the governor's office yet, so I have stated.
Oh, okay. All right. So that brings us to public comment. Did anybody
We didn't,
any indications on internet land or?
no, we didn't have anyone sign up. If there's anyone who's online right now that wanted to do public comment, if you just want to raise your hand. Doesn't look like there's anyone that wants to.
Okay, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I could, Frank here has he's from AOPA, and we haven't met him, everybody in internet land. And he's actually he's absent right now, where is he? He's hiding. Okay, so Brad, a representative from AOPA, is this shortly to go see his son's graduation from C. Big deal. So I was wondering if anybody would oppose, probably the thing that he's most interested in, the discussion on Aurora and BPEDs. Would you have any issues bringing that forward so we can let him get out of here? He's got a plane to catch Portland, and last thing I want to be is responsible for you don't get missing a plane and this and that. Are you okay with that? Anybody out there? Neil, I know you're interested in the discussion. Any problems with bringing the discussion on the BPEDs forward? They discussed earlier this morning. Okay, that's good for him. So, I think a little brief update would be appreciated from everybody.
Okay. That's great. Okay, well, good morning. I do have a brief update on BPDs and specifically regarding the rule. We will be coming to the board in December to bring the public comments and everything we received in the hearing for the permanent rule. So just a brief update in this presentation. Slides. Can you speak up a little bit? Yeah. Okay. For outreach and communication, we are now giving all of our outreach for our public or our state airports through government. It's the same system that we're giving outreach and updates for our board meetings, for the master plan, anything that we want to share for the agency. So there's a link on our homepage at oregon.gov/aviation. If anyone who's not already subscribed, you can go click this subscribe to emails ODA link, and you can select the state airport contact group that you want to subscribe to. Each user can manage their own subscriptions and cancel or unsubscribe at any time, and then to any other as well. Right now, we are kind of ramping down for fire season. Right now at Oak Ridge and Joseph, we have still a firefighting presence. The Oak Ridge State Airport is closed for firefighting, and the Joseph State Airport, the taxiway out, the parallel taxiway between Alpha 1 and Alpha 3 are closed for firefighting aircraft. We have firefighting aircraft and at various levels this year at Tokatee, Chilton, McKinney Bridge, Crescent Lake, Prospect as well. So those airports have returned to normal operations. We have a couple airport projects coming up, or a couple of closures. At Aurora, we are expecting 3 night closures in November. This is for drilling, so we can continue work and design for the primary rehab project that we're anticipating in 2025. We also have the Toledo State Airport apron reconstruction project, which is beginning this coming Monday, October 10th. And we're expecting to go through Friday, November 11th. That is a full airport closure, as we are reconstructing the apron and parts of the connecting taxiways that are within the runway on the creek.
How many operations do you have at that state airport? That's legal, just to get a feel for the closure and how many people it's.
Yeah, we have, I think, 5 base aircraft at Toledo, and they've all been notified, so they're planning to either relocate or just not be able to fly for the next month. But the 5 base aircraft, I'd have to look at some numbers to get operations. Okay, update on our surface incident mitigation. So since our last meeting, we've had 2 BPDs and 1 runway incursion. The runway incursion was from somebody with the National Weather Service that was servicing our ASOS on the airport, and they experienced a significant turnover in staff, and we're in between certain staff and staff who do not regularly service the equipment at Aurora. We're out there, and there was just an oversight in communication, and then they ended up crossing the mandatory position markings. We've spoken with them. We've implemented new procedures for them to operate at Aurora until they can get all of their staff sufficiently trained as all of their turnover. And then the 2 DPDs, this was early August, just shortly after our August board meeting, where we had two vehicles in the same afternoon that were going to have a gathering at one of the hangars on one of the 3 of the best properties that went on to the taxiway. We've had 0 VPs or running incursions in the last 45 days since that last occurrence. We are working on or working with airport groups who are developing various drivers training programs for all of their tenants, subtenants, employees on all the properties, and really appreciate their efforts there. And just as an FYI, the FAA is planning a meeting at the Aurora Airport at the Aviation training facility on October 27th. And when I have more information to share, I will share that through for any pilots or any other airport users who are interested in attending. We welcome everyone who wants to learn more about
Tony, for my own education, from just process wise, to make it formal, if we done a public hearing, what public input, what have we done formally as a state body, just to gain input from the folks around the world?
formally with regards to just these in general, or
From the proposed actions that we've taken and maybe prepared to take.
So far, since VPD started reoccurring around this time last year, we have started or tried to start to address this with outreach and education. We put together flyers. This decal, this is something that we put on our keypads that you have to. It's right above where you enter the code to gain access to the airport, and we've printed and delivered those to for all the private properties as well, for them to put on their keypads. So outreach education, that flyer that I mentioned, we printed and have hand delivered to just about every hangar and facility on the airport. And then we've also addressed some signage and markings, as I just mentioned. I'm going to share about markings here in a second. And then with the rule that we initiated with the temporary rulemaking in June, and then now the permit rulemaking that we are having a hearing for later this month. We filed a public notice for the permit rule in September, and there were 21 days for public comment. And then we refiled the rule or the public notice with the hearing for October 20th, Thursday. It's going to be virtual. And then the public comment, there's an additional public comment period that's 21 days, and it will end at 5 p.m. on 21st. That answers your question?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm getting to that here in just a second. The movement line has been refreshed. Our staff were out here at the end of September and refreshed the entire movement line just to add to improve the faded markings and to make the movement line much more conspicuous, which we again are hoping will help people avoid and then again, I basically mentioned this, but the rule update, we have another public comment period through 5 p.m. on October 21st, and then the hearing is going to be at 2 p.m. on October 20th. Meeting details are on our website at oregon.gov/aviation. We have sent out gov delivery updates with the meeting and the details for the meeting date time. We welcome any comments that anyone wants to share. Before I move on from VPDs, are there any questions on the role, the VPDs in particular?
Yeah, Brad, I know you had a concern, any concern that in your end about, the public engagement and the like?
Yeah, I think there's some of the folks that are on, from the public, particularly the ones that are more intimately familiar with Aurora, they're going to make specific comments. And some of the language is a little bit nitty gritty. I'm not sure whether this is the right forum, but for the public comments and also for engage those comments. That's okay.
All right, so we'll continue with the dialogue,
Yes, ma'am.
continue to scrape, refine the diamond a little bit per se.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that we've got a couple of public meetings going out there, some actual hard dialogue, so.
Yeah. It's all state-owned airports, but it only affects Aurora because it's the only one with the.
I was aware of the one on the 20th. You said there was another public session on the 21st. Did I hear that correctly?
The public comment period that's open now ends on the 21st.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's where you're receiving input, emails,
Right.
whatnot, and then we have a conversation about that.
Exactly. So any
All right, thank you.
testimony shared in the hearing or any comments that we receive through the public comment period, it will bring to the board for your review along with the proposed rulemaking for your. Okay.
And then future service, markings still come in. I know you're planning that some next year, maybe, but we'll get coming into the cycle for next year.
Yeah, timing wise, we were really hoping to complete this certain seal and markings refresh project this fall. Timing wise, it's really going to be next spring. But we did until then refresh the limit line because it didn't be refreshed. So that was kind of our temporary holdover. But yeah, all of the everything except for the runway marking will be completely refreshed for that line.
So thank professional mark. Would like also you've done some enhancements. Some advanced marking there with stencils.
That's actually well, that's been there.
Okay.
Well, so I'm sorry. If I can zoom here. This box, this was done, that's on private property, and that was done by the fence property owners. They did do stenciling. We are going to do stenciling on our portion of the property as well, which is mostly delineated by the asphalt, the concrete area. we are going to have updated stints like on our property. We did not have that yet.
So any questions, any concerns? Great, super, glad to see the, a lot of public engagement. Very
So current projects, Independence Fence project is ongoing. We estimate about 3 weeks left in construction. They're on the west side. The east side has already been completed. And the west side, again, we estimate 3 weeks. They have a couple of photos we'll share here in just a second. The Toledo reconstruction project, again, beginning October 10th, we expect about 30 days for the Pacific City Drainage Survey. The survey has been completed. We are just waiting for the final data. And here are a couple of photos. What's going on at Independence, with the west side fence.
Speaking of Pacific City, last time we had Dave here, and had wanted us to address concerns. I bet he sent a letter back to Pacific City, answering those questions. Did they come back with any additional items or any additional items? Okay.
And then just a little bit of a look ahead. I mentioned the surface seal markings project. We have already completed 2 open house meetings with airport stakeholders where we created or submitted the CSPP to the FAA for their review based on the feedback we received in open house meetings. And again, we are expecting construction in the spring of 23. The Aurora emergency backup generator is in design and will be serving this month for the electrical. And Cape Blanco, we're nearing 50% design. We'll bid in January for construction in 23. Prospect, we're contracting for design and will construct summer of 23. And then Celeste Bay, we have a runner rehabilitation project coming up. The EA is in on obstruction removal. The all of the EA rewrite documents have been submitted to the FAA. It's with them for review. There's still some process there for the FAA for their public comments and completing the EA. Then when that is finished, and we have to wait for that to complete before we can begin appraisals and easement acquisition for that project. So we are looking at this time after the relatively convention process of going for easement acquisition, we're looking at getting the start to move in 20. At Milano, the survey data has been sent to the FAA. They've been surveying this year, and we are scheduling appraisals to get the appraisals completed, and then we'll be on to easement acquisition. For the trees that we already have easements for or are on our property, we are working on having those later this fall for this one. And then at Chiloquin, surveys commencing after that point. Just another heads up, the seasonal airports are closing November 1st, and they close through May 1st. That's Crescent Lake, State Airport, McKenzie Bridge, Standing Junction, and Tokyo. So we remove the Windsox, and these airports are intended for. And then I wanted to give just a
What happens if there's still a fire?
We can keep it open longer. It's just in the remarks for the 5010. It's the airport. Yeah, just winter conditions. We could assess kind of on one case by case. Okay, and just as a little bit of a look into how or what we do for winter operations out of state airports. Most of our airports have remarks for surface conditions not reported. We have 2 operations staff and 2 maintenance staff and myself. With 28 airports scattered across the state, it's very difficult for us to inspect or observe conditions and then report them. So most of them, again, we don't report surface conditions. When we do observe service conditions, we will issue a FICON notum. And we're also happy to talk to any pilot who'd like to call us, call our operations staff for more information. We can explain what we know about the airport based on what's been happening with the weather there. When the last time we did observe that airport, and then it's really the pilot's decision on what they do. We also welcome pirates. Pilot reports, if they do fly into any of our airports, and I skipped a note myself here, but plowing is very limited. We will plow. We have plowing at Joseph, which we do on a regular basis, and then occasionally or as needed here in the valley for our valley. We do not have any VIs at any of our airports, and for the most current conditions, the best source of information, other than calling our staff, is checking for FICONs. And that is my update. Any questions?
Good, yeah. Thanks, Norm. Brings us back to directors of the.
Okay, I'm having technical problems finding him, so Andrew is going to run my slides for you. And I will be brief. We're able to get the slides to work. Technology is wonderful. So I'm just gonna give you just a few items on update on some a new board member and some federal legislation that I thought might be of interest to you. We talked a little bit yesterday about the transition to unleaded gas. What we expect to happen with the legislature, and then if you're interested in update on Salem's attempt to regain commercial service. And the next one, please.
Hold on just one second. Am I sharing it on the Zoom? Okay. Sorry, just one second, Betty.
We just have to share it on Zoom. Want to share this on Zoom? Perfect. There you go. Okay, now it's shared.
Okay, so
Okay.
Governor Brown has appointed Catherine as vice chair of the state aviation board. And then we have a new board member, Sarah, join us. I don't know, do you want to share your background? Or I can read them the bullet points, but why don't you go ahead?
Well, thank you. Well, it's really nice to be here. Privileged to be sitting on the second. Appreciate the governor's nomination to this process. I have been an aviation planner since 2005. First started in Nebraska DOT as intern for aviation planning. I was working on the CFI, but realized I liked aviation planning and it's a great stay in the business. My first job in Oregon was with the Department of Aviation. Worked there for 11 months before becoming a consultant and stayed on the consultant side until I was brought back to work on just. So I just left the agency again. I am a commercial pilot. And my husband and I have a 182, so he's cropped out of that picture. I don't have any pictures of myself, but I live in Eastern Oregon, grew up there, moved back home. Have our family. So we had provided a perspective like the boards as far as Eastern Oregon and the side and some equity the person that we
Okay. Next one. So as you know, the federal fiscal year ended the end of September. Congress was not able to pass a long-term appropriations bill, so they did kick the can, the new resolution that'll go through mid-December. And they have now recessed until after the elections, and they'll go back into session in mid-November. But before they left, they passed two bills that I thought would have some interest to the board, aviation related. So one of them The expedited delivery of Airport Infrastructure Act will allow for the first time ever for airports to use AIP grant money for expedited delivery to incentivize contractors to do early completion of specific types of projects. And airports can use up to $1 million of their AIP funding for that purpose.
So is it just, the incentivized early completion, is it just, monetary bonus awards? Is that the only thing that really can speed up?
Yeah, and incentivized for early completion is, it's monetary, it's like we penalize for late completion, liquidated damages, this is to incentivize them to do early completion. I have not seen any of the details of this bill yet, it was just passed last week. But I think that's a welcome addition to help get certain types of projects completed early. And then the other one was the preventing PFAS runoff at airports through chemical in aircraft firefighting foam that is a carcinogen, PFAS, and Catherine knows more about this than I do. I expect Steve does as well. So this now will allow for use of AI grant money at 100%, no match for some inline testing for that.
We have no airports.
We do not, but Catherine, staying.
So, I believe the provision still allows for those that are purchase the now phone.
Yes.
To got that reimbursed. So we actually put ours online.
And that's a picture of what Salem was doing in their library. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but we've finally gotten to unleaded aviation gasoline. So in almost all the fuel sold in Oregon is jet fuel. After this, that is sold at a single airport. But the 3% that's sold as aviation gasoline, also known as 100 low lead, it is the last lead-based fuel in the world. And so we're finally got a substitute for it. The FAA just approved it 3 weeks ago for use in all piston engine aircraft. And so the goal is to eliminate leaded fuel by 2030, so in 7 years from now, get all the aircraft transition that currently use 100 low lead transitioned over to 100 or not 100 to unleaded fuels. And then now it just becomes the process of ramping up production and then distribution and storage and in-plane, because it needs a separate system than what the current 100 low lead requires. And so we are hoping to find some federal funding to do a study to look at where is it most likely going to go first, and then what comes next, because it's going to be the valley first, and then when do we think it can get to the coast and then to eastern Oregon, and what time frame. And then we're also still trying to find funding to do the electrification study.
Any discussions within the FAA and follow-on funding to
We would have
states transition?
this is very new, so the FAA just approved this a couple of weeks ago. We'll have that discussion with them. If we do it as a state, we will have to use our system planning money for it. It makes sense better than every airport kind of do it on their own.
Can I just for clarification, I don't know that everyone on the audience, either here or elsewhere, when we say will be infrastructure modification, production, distribution, storage, and into plane delivery, I just want to make clear that the FAA approval, as stated, is the GAMI solution, which is the one that's approved right now. And of course, that is the 100 unleaded, and that is fully fungible. That means there is no new supply chain, there is no new pumps, equipment, hoses, anything. Now, 100% by design, that was a requirement. Now, I think a tangential conversation is, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, 94 unleaded, which is currently available in some quantities, produced as indicated here by SWIP. That does require separate infrastructure.
Okay, that's good. to
Is
know.
that helpful?
That's helpful. Thank you. Okay, next one, please. Okay, our final legislative days for this year is going to be December 7th and 9th, and it is going to be in person. Finally, the past 2.5 years, we've been doing remotes, and so we're finally transitioning back to in-person meetings. And then we have an election coming up in about a month, and then we expect inauguration to be 16th to the 23rd. And the session starts on the 1st. This year's going to be a little bit different in that normally we do a 2-year budget. We normally, the governor transmits that budget to the legislature on January 1st. This year it's going to be slightly later because to give the new governor an opportunity to review and make changes to the budget. So we'll be sending the budget over to the legislature on the first day of session on the 1st. And I think I mentioned this to you yesterday. 2/3 of the House and a third of the Senate will be first timers. So there's going to be a bit of a learning curve there for them, as well as we'll have different leadership in there. Senator Byer, who is the chair of Joint Transportation Committee, which is a committee that deals with all of our bills, is stepping off from the legislature and has been appointed to the Oregon Transportation Commission. And in his place, Senator Frederick will co-chair with Representative McLean. Okay, next one, please. Okay, let me just briefly tell you about on Salem's attempt to get her service. I don't know, well, many of you were on the board at that time. I will remember 2 years ago, we gave this board gave Salem a $500,000 grant to recruit for air service through our young programs. And so they have been actively trying to recruit for line service since then, and they have 2 carriers that have expressed a strong interest and have written letters of support for them. And they just recently were awarded an $850,000 small community air service development grant for recruitment of an airline. So they're in discussion with 2 airlines for potential service to either San Francisco, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, or Phoenix. They started working on their security plan on modifications to the terminal building to accept the TSA screening. And because the old terminal was intended for 50-seat aircraft, and these airlines they're talking to are the narrow body mainline type of aircraft like 737s. And so those are 100 to 120 passengers, so they have to do some modification to the terminal buildings to be able to accept that size of an aircraft. And then, so the board gave them $500,000. Feds, SCASI gave them $850,000, and then the legislature in the 22 session gave them $540,000 to do terminal modifications. That is not sufficient to do all the modifications they need, and they are asking the council for additional funding to do the remaining modifications.
What, right?
I don't remember. And do you remember how much they're short? I don't know. I'm sorry, I do not. I can find out.
No, it's not. Curious. It's just interesting that we have, in place where our legislature meets regularly with the words, it's good that it's so difficult to get our service.
At one time, we said we were the only state capital that doesn't have airline service.
Does Liberty have an airport?
Yeah, Olivia has an airport. I don't think that's service. So no, okay, so that would not be correct.
I used to fly some, I would say. But United Airlines. Regulations. That's okay. Yeah, now we put in 30.
That was my report. If there's any questions.
Just a general question, because we're talking about fuel transition. The chair made a mention about the fuel tax yesterday. The question is, it's more of an issue spot in terms of transition from sort of the regular gasoline to alternative fuels. and also electrification. And us as an agency, we're so dependent on that. Just thinking ahead, just a tickler, don't need to address it right now. But eventually, for example, and we talked about, that's gonna be all electric, it's gonna require staff time as well. So how to sort of gain a revenue stream from that side in order to help fund our operations in oversight as well.
And absolutely, that is our future is, as we switch over to, if it's just gonna be sustainable fuels, then we will amend the legislation so that those fuels are included in the fuel tax. So if it is electrification, then we do need to find an alternate funding source, as the dependence on traditional fuels declines.
And
And highway is actually facing that, and ODOT is facing that challenge right now as more electric vehicles on the road. Their revenues are declining. They did a presentation last week showing their current cash balance, and at 100 million, they're going to complete that cash balance in 3 years. And in 5 years, they're projecting $100 million in debt of committed debt because of this same issue. So it's point well taken. Yes, we need to try to find an alternate funding source. And we are going to the legislature this session with our first ever general fund tax for operating.
that might be good for a task group to tackle with the whole sort of AM, UAM side of something.
I've been thinking about the file. We talked about it yesterday. There's obviously need to move forward with new technology, we're talking about electrification of the aviation system, or even advanced air mobility. That leads to the point of how do you generate a revenue stream for that? Just the same way about it leads to the challenges, which is road tax, fuels, and now you don't use it. I would also say, I think one of the things we should probably explore, again, I don't know how it's working or something, and with the staff is there, like we talked about yesterday, aviation versus some other new evolving technology. Aviation is a mature technology. The use of carbon-based aviation is a mature technology. But there are now movements to better fuels, whether we're talking about SAF in the jet realm, or whether we're talking about unleaded. And how do we get the legislature's attention instead of making that quantum leap to the next level of electrification, which will happen at some point? But there are incremental steps along the way, either supporting SAF or supporting unleaded fuel. They may not be as sexy as the step to the next level, but will certainly gain us huge benefits in that overall. I'm concerned about making sure that we get attention from these other ones, but may not seem as eye-catching as it moves towards electric. But they would have huge both economic and environmental benefits moving towards SAF in the jet realm or unleaded in the avgas realm. How do we get their attention on that? Maybe there's financial incentives that the legislature can build into those that aren't as attractive as like, let's build in electrification financial incentives. We still have to focus on the other ones here. I'd love for us to think to staff about how we can get the legislature's attention to support some of those interim things, even if it's a long-term electrification.
That's really interesting, because I think you're gonna get a natural inroad, because, we battled a couple of bills in the past where we had different legislatures bring bills in that says, we're gonna ban low lead today. Just out of the blue, we're gonna ban low lead because it's got the popularity. You can write in, because the idea of going to electrification for large aircraft, it's not anywhere in the near future at all. I mean, it's not even on, I don't think, United, there's no plane out there to discuss it. But you can bring me in that there are alternative things happening. So I think we got a natural road right into that, just based on the new discussion of the agency.
Right, and I would love to have that conversation of how do we have a strategic way to think about as these issues come up, either with the legislature or with the public over the next year or so. Let's have a strategic communication plan about, yes, those are great long-term solutions, but we are also advocates for some of these things that get us towards that, but also include the current situation by switching to sustainable fuels, or helping the transition to sustainable fuels in the aviation, the Jet A realm, helping the transition to less environmentally harmful fuels in the avgas realm. Here's what we're doing in those realms as well, while we're working on the long-term solution. I come down to the long haul, but there are opportunities for
Have opportunity to discuss that in the upcoming legislature. I would imagine sit and reclaim would probably, actually, there'll be a discussion on low bid, no bid. Probably coming up soon.
Exactly, and to your point about banning issues that came up previously, instead of that, what can perhaps state operators, the legislature do to, instead of banning, incentivizing it towards that, like, hey, I'm not gonna stop people, but can you incentivize them to go, I can make this switch relatively comfortably, easily, and economically. For some reason, maybe it's helping incentivize fuel storage for some fuels that aren't fungible because you can't, or you may not want to commingle 100 low lead and 100 unleaded. Maybe it's helping incentivize infrastructure across the state. It doesn't have to be directly funded, maybe it's tax incentives. If you want to do it. So, I mean, are there ways that we can make recommendations to help that roll out? We're not going to, nobody in this room or in the state is going to, there's no refinery, we're not going to produce it. We are going to help distribute it. We'll come to airports, and so how do we help those private businesses or even the state? They're going to be putting in infrastructure. How do we help them prepare and have this infrastructure in place? Again, it's not as attractive as that long-term thing like electrification, but it can make some great benefits in the interim to help them get to the point.
It'd be very attractive to have some knowledge on art. I mean, just like you said, to have a communications plan that this is what we think we should push forward to our various individuals on the joint transportation.
Absolutely, discussions come up in the list. With the director and the staff about how do we answer this.
Talk about that more, but some issues that we're going to address and what ones we can do now. Ask staff difficulty levels of what we need and how we go about getting that laid out. That should be something that we can not do. True.
And I think that makes perfect sense in terms of the strategic plan, the short, medium, and long-term goals. So, those, there you go.
Especially if we don't, I mean, if AOP is supportive of transition to a new, these newer sources of fuel that are drop in and don't require. I mean, I think with the gamma product, I think there is still a STC that's required, right? But
At the moment.
it's not significant in value. I think the last I saw $100 for it. It may even for certain like flight schools. So I think it was it covered if you had an entire class, like you didn't have to buy it per aircraft, it covered like.
Yeah,
You
there's
had-
other things happening within the FAA and those various forms, the Eagle, et cetera, that are gonna figure out how that's fair, both the proprietor, inventor of the
Exactly.
formula and the aviation. But yeah, that you're absolutely right.
So I think, yeah, if we just have a strategic communication, I think it would help us. So with the legislature and the response to the answer. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? Why can't we? That's out of each one. Here's what we could do to help us get to a point where.
It'd be really, I think it's a really good idea. All right, anything else?
Projects, supply chain process, installations.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing, I think everyone's seeing costs of this in the time. We were able to, for instance, do a project, that's the most recent one we did. We were able to get the project through with what the funds that we had. We did have to cut a couple line items, but
You see, generally like the 30% increase, it seems to be across the board, pretty much for any construction project down to the little bit higher? Like,
No, I'm sorry, Tony, it really depends on the materials and the work. It depends, if it's just asphalt only, yeah, we're seeing at least 30%, for sure, right, oil. And even higher, like the Toledo project is a 8 project, but we're talking, electrical and equipment related stuff, it's even 70%, and then you have supply chain issues. It really, it depends. I'm working with our engineers on all the costing right now on our projects. They're all gone. I mean, but the level of detail, it really depends on the type of work. We have a shortage of manpower in our states, and then locally throughout our state, what that looks like. So our contractors are seeing it, the contractors don't have a problem. We're working for them as many as they've had in the past, because they've gone to other states where the firm's not comfortable and it's better. So we're seeing cost escalation in many different areas that we just didn't expect.
And then for our other project, the fencing projects, the contractor had procured or got all the materials prior to this year. And so we haven't really seen that firsthand.
Just to back to the discussion on all the fuels of recycling certain. Now you're not anticipating a major investment. Fuel will be very cycle.
That'd be one conversation. Yeah.
If I could throw this back at the board, and a program section to the main meeting. So happy to have you here. We haven't had this discussion since 2007. And talk about how we're going to tackle revenue. But like United Airlines also purchased 280 eVTOLs. And what is that going to look like, and how is that going to affect, our state at some point in time, and then the revenue and what that looks like. And many of you probably don't know that our agency is responsible for inspecting all airports. What does that mean? In the past, for statute, an airport, what is an airport? It's a heliport. We have that being statute that says it's a vertiport. Now, where are those going to be? And everywhere. And they put that on the back of the sign. And so we're responsible for doing it and taking that to the board, because the board actually has to put a stamp on the location of an airport after our guys goes out and inspects it in the field. Is that us? Is that somebody else? Is that an agency? I'm throwing these questions back at you because it's going to come out as hard. And we're so lucky to have Benji on this board to help us do that. I see it, and it's happening fast, and those are a lot of discussions that I don't have answers to, but we're going to have to be looking around in other states and really know to.
Definitely look at other states, but at the same time, I think we have some very creative minds here. So we can come up with some very good solutions as well.
I think so too, but the revenue piece is going to be hard for that as well. And then the vertical piece, and that's part of our statute, and what that looks like.
That's my guess.
Well,
And I'm glad that in this next legislative session, we'll be asking the legislature to take the fees that we charge for licensing airports out of statute and put it in administrative. That fee has not changed in over 25 years. It requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature to change it. And we think the legislature has better things to do than look at a fee that only generates $5,000 a year for us. So that's our first step, is get out of that, put it into an administrative rule, look at the rulemaking process and see, is that fee appropriate? Do we should be charging it all, or is $100 for an airport licensing fee appropriate, or does it need something else? So we're nibbling away at the elephant, and we're going to get there, but that's one of the first steps.
To that point about finding diverse for adapting the revenue stream to the diversification of aviation. I would ask staff, well, especially the director, is this a topic of the sale? Obviously, the 49 other airports facing this very same challenge. I'd be interested to hear what that's moving to organization they are proposing. Towards the setting, Oregon is not unique. Every other state organization faces the challenge. How the sale.
Yeah, I was not at the sales conference a couple of weeks ago, but Brad was. Did they bring up the issue in the sale conference on the revenue streams? For with as we transition over to aircraft that do not require fuel.
Oh,
after the-
it has come up in conversation. I don't recall if it was a sale in particular, but yeah, it's a significant concern for operators for sure.
I meet with my counterparts at the 7 Northwest Mountain Region states. I've got one coming up next month and I'll bring it up to them.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Because almost all of us rely on fuel tax. Some of us exclusively, some of them have a mix of tax and general fund. Some of us, Colorado and comes to mind, is exclusive fuel tax.
Oh, whatever. Program.
Yes, yes, they have much.
Yeah, and if that conversation does happen, they could pull in industry as well. That's Carnival and the largest AQ. They're, from what I've heard from them, they're very pro working with agencies to figure out solutions. And they understand.
And they
One
want
of
us
the good parts for us though is the tax and generates the majority, I can't remember the actual breakdown of percentage wise, is fuel tax. We don't get a lot of money from COVID. Small
Yeah.
aircraft sales.
973, so 973 is
Is here is Jet A, a bigger, so. We're not in crisis mode, we don't see Jet A going away anytime soon, but it is an interesting conversation. From ODOT, anything that burns gas transitioning to electrification. The concept of taxing fuel has been with us for a long time, it's whatever us major ships.
that's not that weird for it.
Good conversation. We're really like the idea about fuel, what we're gonna do, like, key of legislation. They don't think it's, especially since, as Betty said, a number of them will be brand new and learning a lot of things fast.
You're the first firehouse and we want to be one of the first ones.
One, I think if we have our communication. Partner does. We won't be scrambled to react. Let us talk about what we're, I mean, it's like. What we think that the majority have not, oh gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Issues come up. Be prepared.
Thank you very much. So, is that next? Heather next?
I am. I don't have a PowerPoint for you all. We're sorry. I'll try to get some time back. I just have a couple brief updates and then go over a little bit of my notes. As Betty mentioned, we're looking at scoping some studies and system planning. Land use compatibility is on top of that table. Then the low lead and electrification. I'm working on the 2022 PMP closeout and defining the 2023 PMP program. I promised you all a policy document for your reading to take with you. Since most of you haven't seen this, I doubt this. Take some time and read it. Maybe at the next meeting, bring me back questions. This is our payment maintenance program. And we provide maintenance to the 60 PMP reports trying to see. And we fund that in-house. Yeah. So if you have any questions about it, I did bring it to the board last year and redefined the regions and took it from a 3-region to a 4 region so that we could spread the money out a little bit more since the payments were in a stronger ability to do that. So that's where we're at. I'm getting ready to kick off the 2022-23 pavement evaluation process, and that feeds into the pavement maintenance program, the construction site. So we do PCI reports for all of those airports too in that area. So we're getting ready to kick that off for region 2. Let's see. Brandon, Seth, John and I have completed 380 aeronautical studies to date. Only 13 have been done since we instituted the new fee of $100, but still, that's 13 that we collected $100 on, and that was I think mid-September.
September 10th.
With that, so that's pretty great. We've got approximately 20 FAA grants open. We're looking at closing a couple of those out. Tony mentioned some of the projects that we were working on jointly, sled space and 50% design, and environmental, and Cape Blanco, which is fully state funded and no FAA, is in about the same spot, about 50% design. Those are going to be on schedule and are on schedule to be bid early in 23. Our ASAP and core program opened on Monday. Andrea will fill you in with the report in a little bit. I think we have 8 applicants that are filling out applications right now.
So far, yeah.
Pretty excited about the upcoming cycle. Most of you also know I'm the agency designated procurement officer. That means I manage all of our contracts and solicitations, and right now we're in the middle of, well, I'm in the middle of creating solicitations for an RFPs for engineering and planning services for a package, a suite, if you will, of 8 of our airports. So that would be 2 solicitations. It's getting ready to go out. Hopefully it will go out this month. So we'll be on the street for 30 days. And we can bids that RFP post out by the end of the year. I think it expires February, so you have to. That's just a little bit of an update with planning. I did bring an admin update, but admin is really doing a great job. Registration is and our collections are up to date. And I just wish I had more time to do the presentation. So, oh, and on that note, we still haven't filled the grant coordinator position. Didn't get it qualified candidates in, so we can back out. I hope to have a really good update for you at the next board meeting and somebody that will start already by then. And then we'll still probably be filling in as board administrators because that position was taken out of the budget last cycle, and Kathy had volunteered to do it because she was used to doing it, and then she just accepted the role. So at any rate, hopefully we'll be able to have a board administrator.
Appreciate the handout on. Do you have questions? So we're good. Do you have questions?
Oh, 2 things. Yeah, when you realign the regions, have 4, is there a reason why region 1 has like a whole number of 2, 3, or 4 each of them? And you have a lot of airports.
It is a lot of airports, but it actually works better. It works better for a couple of reasons. So if you, that's a really great question. If you go on our website and look at the 10-year report, 10-year study, you'll notice that. So those airports all act very similarly. Same, so do the ones on the east side of the state. They, the pavement deteriorates a lot faster. Those ones deteriorate a lot slower. So we actually touch less of them because the pavement stays better. So it's actually, it's easier that way, plus it's an easier contact base for that. And it really explains it very well in the 10-year study about how the weather is a big factor on pavement. And actually keeps pavement in some pretty good shape. So our coastal pavement is really excellent. And as long as you're maintaining it, it stays that way for a long time. It seems like it, but the way it pops through the program, because it's not a subjective program, I don't sit and pick, it's done right in my paper. And the way it pops, it shows you, it's actually, it doesn't, all of those don't pop at the same time. So we're actually spending the same amount of money that we're spending in other regions. So a region that actually, really grabs most of our funding is Eastern North. It's payments, because the hard freeze really hurts me. So it takes a lot more money to fix that. And it takes a lot more money to make sure to fill those cracks and seal them up, make sure the base is in good shape. So it doesn't get water in it. So it's hard freeze.
You push it, right, or are we losing it?
Sadly, yes.
All right.
Thank you all for having me. It's been super informative. If I can help you in any way, do something. And remember, we are the pilot advocacy group, but to do that, we work with this entire group of stakeholders. So
All right, and
Appreciate it.
to your whole family again.
thank you. I appreciate it. No, we're pretty excited.
Last but not
Good job.
least, we do have an Aurora master plan meeting coming up. We're really happy about that too. The FAA kindly got comments back. It took them a very long time. And we have sent them, I think we finalized our comments and either sent them out last week, put them on the website. And we'll be having the meeting on Tuesday, November 15th from 3 to 5. It's going to be going out to everybody. And published in the paper, record, and also the Wilsonville paper and the Candy Herald too. We over notify just to make sure that we can get as many people engaged in this process as we can, because that's the goal. But, yes, it will be virtual. We really wanted to make it in person, but where we are, we're actually adding this meeting because the FAA took so long to get us comments and then we have to comment back. So we want to walk the group through their comments and walk the group through the agency as well as comments back on the comments before we get into the next chapter. Because we don't have an approved forecast yet because we're responding to the comments for chapters 1 and 2. So we get into another meeting. We didn't anticipate it's another project hit. But we feel I feel like it's very important to get the group back together to talk about this, to make sure that if there are any questions, we'll give us an opportunity to ask them. Especially since the FAA did provide so many comments. And most of them have to do with their own information, so it's a little bit. So I will repeat that, of course, that okay, well, maybe another board member would like to.
Tom, are you still following? The master plan meeting, are you still?
Yes, Sarah, we go back to the planning.
I'll review it.
Oh, for sure.
You want to help out? All right. We got a second flight follower on the master plan, that'd be great.
So to make sure that we could give it the 30-day notice and publish it in the paper, which takes a little bit more than 30 days, right? The soonest we can get it done was November 15th. We wanted to make sure that it was well in advance of Thanksgiving and not gonna conflict with everybody else. It's kind of a rush because I don't think everybody understands that it's almost 2.5 weeks for the State Journal to publish. So man, that's about 2.5 weeks since I thought it was these two. But I will update the board on that. I'll have a nice PowerPoint at the next meeting and come with the questions on the payment maintenance program. Wonderful program. Do a lot of good work with the state. And happy to answer.
Great. Well, it's fantastic. We've only got the comments back from the FAA. That's a win. That's
Well, for the first 3 chapters, right? So,
all right. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And a lot of good work and good board. Like I said, the payment maintenance plan, you'll hear a lot about that because we do love maintaining our wonderful asset.
the infrastructure of all of the airports, not just our own, is super important for our health system.
So I guess Andrew, are you giving us the update on ASAP or not? The update,
Yes.
just asking for approval to forward the report for the legislature?
I'll come over here so you guys look about it. So also as Heather was mentioned a moment ago, of course, like the open on Monday. So we're 4 days in and have found the applications. It ends on October 21st, so there's about 3 weeks for applicants to fill those out. Currently, because we are recruiting for our other grant coordinator. Heather is supporting me in helping our airport sponsors. So I'm a primary contact for our applicants, but Heather is also. So yeah, we're just having it out and excited to see what our sponsors will like us. And then along with that, we have an annual ASAP report that is due to the legislature in September of the year. Generally, we do present that to the board prior to submitting the legislature, but we weren't able to get it together for the August meeting. So we submitted it mid-September, and then it was submitted in the board packet. So we decided to ask the board to approve that report.
Any questions? We saw the data for the report, discussed that in the last board meeting, any issues? Okay, do I have a motion for the board to approve the report submitted to the legislature, required by House Bill 2434? We have a motion by Gidgey. Do we have a second? A second by Steve. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Kristen, we get to wrap up with money. All right.
Okay, so I just have a brief presentation for you. So for the 23-25 budget, I don't have any new numbers for you from the last time I presented the tax budget for you. So next, we'll see the governor's budget, and so Betty already touched on that. But the difference will be between the agency request budget. It'll depend on what policy optional packages are approved by the governor's office, and then of course it will depend on what governor is elected and their priorities. So we're just waiting now to see what we come up with. And then next year we will go to the session. And then at the end of that, we will get our legislatively adopted budget. And we will execute that for 2 years starting in 20. Then I wanted to give you a little advanced snapshot for our current budget, so 21-23. What we're working on right now. So we are 15 months into our current budget. So that's about 62% through. And so I'm going to show you a little snapshot of operation, aircraft registration. So for our operations department, so this is the department that funds the majority of our staffing. It also funds airport maintenance, airport operations, administration, planning. You can see our total budget. Well, it's 5.6 million is our total budget for a 2-year period. And majority of our revenue is jet fuel tax, like we talked about yesterday. So a couple other main sources of revenue for operations are our other non-business licensing fees. So that's our hangar fees, access, fuel flowage at the airports, and then our rents and royalties. So our land is another main source of revenue. And then we have several other sources of revenue for operations. So for our operations department, the main expenditure is personal services, so that's all of our staff. And then the second expenditure is service and supplies, and that covers a wide range of expenses for the agency. We like to keep a nice ending balance. You can see around 1 million for operations, because that helps us to deal with the fluctuations in federal taxes. So you can see for fuel tax, we haven't quite rebounded to where we were pre-pandemic in 17-19 biennium, but we are looking better than we did last biennium. So we're slowly rebuilding there. As far as our budget, when we started off budget build for the 21-22 budget, we had to make a lot of cuts. So we had to cut a lot of staff. We had to reduce our expenditures, cut all travel. It was really, really tight. And then we were watching the forecast for jet fuel, and it started to look a little better. So we were able to add on the budget back. So that is a good story. And then for the next budget, we put in even better budget. And we're seeing the forecast slowly go up for jet fuel again. So that's a good news for the operations department.
Any forecast for 2023? grants over there?
We haven't received a recent one since last presented. So
We do it twice a year.
mhm.
And the next one is.
Yeah, one thing about the cell, we'll send that out with like. So our aircraft registration program is funded completely by aircraft registration revenue. And so the revenue here goes for our FAA grant match. So we get a little less than 800,000 per biennium. And with this program, we actually saw we didn't see a huge dip with the pandemic, like we did with some of our other revenue sources. So that was good and a good testament to our aircraft registration specialist, Lisa and now Jerry at the time. They're still collecting revenue from student agency, so that's good. You'll also notice in this program, so this right here transfers out for grant match. So that's the transfers for our 10% matching funds. So for 1921 and mostly this part of the FAA was giving us 100% grants. So you'll see this number was reduced significantly in the last two bienniums. So that's good for us because we're able to build a larger FA balance. You can see we're forecasting to have about 1.7 million in aircraft registration. And that's good because we have a lot of project plans for this biennium. So pretty much have all of that.
For projects only, but not for system plan work. So our system plan grant match, which would be the studies that we talked about, the payment evaluation program, which comes out of the system plan, that actually has to come out of operations. We're not legally able to pull that out of this program. So just as a like a
That's true. That is by statute, aircraft registration for certain things, but not. So the next snapshot is pavement maintenance, what Heather was talking about. Now this program took the biggest hit with the pandemic with the jet fuel tax because it is 100% funded by jet fuel tax. So it receives a little less than half of a cent. It's actually 45%. That's how the legislative statute. And so some operations had some other revenue sources to help us in the pandemic. EMP does not. So to the extent you can see the revenue pre-pandemic was more like 2 million, dropped down to 1.5. So we're starting to see that restored a little bit. And then next week, we're going to see that restored even more. So we did have to take a lot of cuts to this program, but we're slowly restoring them. So.
And the FAA no longer supports this with grants. They used to, but it was too hard for them to continue to do that. We didn't receive a lot, but it was a minimal amount. And to be honest, it didn't really cover the grant administration that we had to do for it anyways. And not accepting that money is actually going to allow us to build a better program, be able to provide better services. So it's a double-edged sword. It is more helpful.
That's all I had for finance. Do you have any questions?
Just real quick for Bethany, but just a reminder that when she showed the slide that if we want to take a look at KMP, if we're doing the adjustments, then we probably should do that earlier because once you get into the legislative cycle, we need to start April. So if we have a desire, we need to have that discussion publicly for first part of the year. So we just can't let that slide off the radar.
You, that might be benchmarking with other. Fine.
I've talked to them informally about how much they charge, what they charge on their fuel taxes, and but in terms of things like for airport licensing, most of them, I don't know if they do it, and most of them do not owner operator. Washington has to be some that they don't. So to answer your question, no, that's a good suggestion.
It's small that we use all the time. Where we're at, found some opportunities.
For the the rental rates for land and for paper, especially for one in you do the market analysis.
We published the rates, last year, we surveyed all public airports in Oregon and published a report, on what is every airport charging for, landing fees and tie-downs and unapproved land, optics, all that stuff. So we did that about, not quite 2 years old.
Less than
Less than that, is it
It was last year.
Well, the 18 months.
I don't know if Tony, if you had an opportunity to compare your rates versus what report, and that was, it's recent.
Yeah. And if you'd like, you can share it with you, I'm happy to share it, so.
Tony, I'm just curious about how frequently you've gone through, because also there's, especially on market land, they're hiring an actual appraiser to do your appraisals and.
And we have not done that recently, we just did the informal, ask everybody, what are you charging for that?
I will say kudos to the agency, and that was a self-funded, it was not a big funded agency. And being on staff side at that time, I did have a lot of airports calling and saying, you want to see those numbers, and, even like I told you, it will be next week, we have it now, we want it now, I have four airports from the state. Which if they were happy to participate in the results, so well, by not be market analysis, it did kind of, like you're seeing that benchmark, what's your neighbor charging? That's very part was.
The only reason I was asking is kind of economically, well, who knows what the next year will be, but certainly the last 2 years, we have recovered somewhat economically from the largest downturn in 2 years, but so we might be for a while, but we've been part now, as well. Let's see. We've certainly seen in the general aviation world, very large recovery in certain sectors. Quite wonderful. Or, quite profitable. So, those factors across the board. Again, at the point where you're doing something that are could be beneficial.
I think we are too, for a few, items.
Here's a question for you, Betty. Yesterday you mentioned how antiquated some systems are and, now I'm trying to remember whether you said that it's going to be the upcoming top for a request for it is. I'm curious, is it an aviation specific software program you're looking at, or are you looking at it more of a relationship management type of software?
So we're looking at 2 software programs, one for aircraft registration and one for our leasing program. We go out on the leasing side, again, we have 270 leases across 28 properties, and we're looking at some that are specifically designed for airports that some of the airports in the state already use. And we're evaluating those programs to see if they'll be a good fit for us. They're on the pricey side. We're also looking at the Department of Administrative Services with the sister agency, which leases properties all across the state, to see if their software program might be able to be modified for us to be able to piggyback on the back. What's the cost of that versus a standalone? So that's for the leasing side. For the aircraft registration side, I think it is, whether I need some help on this, I think it's at least 30 years old. It's proprietary. It is.
I don't think that it's proprietary. I know it's at least 30 years old. It was created by ODOT when the agency was with ODOT, and even their own text really can't support it anymore because of the platform that it's built on. And they tried to for us, but they just we have been in contact with a lot of other states that do registration, and so we have some idea of what we get and for what price. It's just finding the revenue to do that.
What sort of budget are we looking at potentially for those range?
The total request, which includes other things like Aurora legal fees and other things in there, was $1.5 million. The software for my thing on for the the leasing, was it?
Anywhere from ten to $100,000.
Year.
So the
And
registration software is a little higher, well, it's a little higher than that, but it's definitely. It's a lease. But it's like 80 to 150,000. Not for the initial. Is there any potential for those two programs to talk so that we can verify that someone who is leasing or landing the aircraft actually is registering that aircraft? Is there any? That's a really, that's a tough one. We looked at that in the past. There might be, if we were asked to put together the agreement on that, it might just be really difficult and almost like single sourcing. So it would be more of a actual something that. We should be doing that now, and I'll say, no, it takes a little bit of extra time. But I kind of see the numbers, and I see they don't try about them very well. Yeah.
The, on the leasing software, you mentioned customer service aspect of it. Some of the programs that I've looked at do have components that can help our users, our lessees, our through defense permittees, input information. They can log into an account, they can look at their profile or their lease or their access agreement. They can update their insurance certificate, they can take billing. And then maybe submit a ticket or reach out to us if they have. So while it's primarily a staff tool for managing our leases and all of our premises, some of them have an opportunity to allow.
Yeah, because I think primarily that's one of the most important pieces, because make it easy without with this the least amount of friction through customers that actually engage in pay things. It's seamless, it's top on there, that's your credit card, the more compliant you can get. So I think that's one of the most important things that look at is usability and making it easy. And also automating as much of your processes as possible, because time is it's short with everybody. With big pull in different directions, but not too much staff. So anything that can be done. So there's reminders sent out on the back way something comes due. You don't have to physically technically go into email and send it. The easier it's going to be, the more stuff you get done. So I think that those are the two primary drivers. Easy and efficient.
Great.
Okay. We've already done Tony's, so we are at 11:30. So do you want to move on to the board updates or the business? The last
That's
item?
why we close it up.
Well,
So board updates, okay, what is actually all 7 minutes for now? That particular update, we create that very much. Going forward, next board meeting is back in Salem. Okay, back in Salem. And so we'll probably spend, give us an hour and a half discussion items there for what we want to kind of tee up for the 2023 session and what we need to look at early versus what we can especially on a little bit later. And then we'll also be having an executive session. Stacy just need to talk to us about the latest and greatest of the legal run that kind of stand up there. What else do we have teed up for the next board meeting? Oh, we get DPED, that, and for that, you're going to have to bear with us. I'm really going to be a Nat Stats detail kind of person. I want to see that we pull all the strings, public hearings, what came out of the public hearings, and then signing, education, what the tenants are responsible for, what we're responsible for, the actions upon current deviation, appeal process, the whole thing. So take your time.
And outcome of the master plan.
of course, yeah, you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I would find it that placeholder, so.
I will have you look at a schedule for 23. And if you want to go to more frequent meetings, goal setting, at 1 month and then the regular administrative stuff, and then we'll talk about it, and then talk about the evaluation.
Hey, fantastic. And then, Betty, we talked a little bit before about whether you thought this upcoming legislative season, it would be helpful for the board to actually go, you give us a whole. Generally, we haven't, other than when called upon by certain senators in the aviation industry. We have not actually gone to offices in the last 4 years and sat at a desk and had a conversation. We've not done as a. So I talked to Dave, if there's any homework assignments as we get, maybe discussions come up that's like certain the joint transportation, commission wants to discuss and talk about fuel or whatever. Any more discussion on what we would be useful to the process and how you would want us to interject and have what homework assignments that you may be considering. Don't have to answer it now. We haven't even got the legislators to take this. We don't have 2/3 of our legislators. But if we could give some thought on that and who may want to involve themselves with talking with legislators who has no interest. That's also a very good data point. If you have no interest, you can come in to Salem, if you're talking with legislators, just pass that along. I respect that.
Obama traditionally holds a spring conference, usually at the start of the legislative session. And so, whether or not a meeting at that time would be appropriate to hold. I know that individuals sometimes.
That's a completely different. Generally, we've had board members attend the Aurora. It's already here.
It's actually co-located,
Board
board
meeting.
meeting, the February board meeting to coincide with the longer.
Does anyone want to attend? If you don't have to sign out, you can go home with your company. If you want to attend the Aurora, I did it. Doug Ferguson did it with me, a couple of others. It's bad because you give yourself, you're with them all day long for 2 days. And it's a good time for them to be, it's in a formal way to go over for a cup of coffee. It's a good way to chum around. I appreciate it. I guess it's all my good thoughts.
And we just have 4 board members attending the Aurora conference later this month.
Okay.
And then the next one will be in February in Salem in person. And we generally have a board meeting at the end of Aurora's, because that's where you get out the money. And so.
You give out money for it.
And they'll be there to see if their grants are approved. Senators, legislative exception.
Yeah, we have been in the past, yes.
I'm sure we're gonna do that in the spirit. ODA usually supports that too.
So it's a very good place to.
To meet you, your legislature.
And if they know you're going to be there in advance, they may come. Legislative reception sometimes has a very attendance. But we, said, we can maybe influence that over that folks show up. Good chance to meet.
Maybe just send personal invites.
So we'll be thinking a little bit more on that. I'll talk about all that. So, everybody's interested.
We may have legislative concepts by then, by the December board meeting, and then we'll know what the legislature is proposing. Aviation. If not, we'll definitely have it by February board meeting, and then we can decide if you want to engage on any of these bills.
And we've also talked about an aviation caucus. Every other year, any idea of an aviation caucus comes up. Is there any interest? Generally, you gotta have legislators in aviation to make that happen. But if we want to kind of feel water, if there's any interest, happens to be elected. That'll be a good conversation. So for the December board meeting, that we could just try to keep a good buffer space for conversation, just to flow. If we go longer, instead of an hour and a half, it goes 2.5 hours. I think that would be 2.5 hours, very well spent. So if we can keep the agenda for light, that would be great. So anything else and about the veteran? Kenji, anything happening in UAS role?
Yeah, I'll be in DC on October 19th to the 21st for the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. So that's coming up, and then I think they'll just be presenting at a number of conferences as well.
No.
I did, wrong number, actually, I had 100. Straight from side aircraft, 30 seats. Expect to have a break on the gate, so we're talking. Also, this all. Credit, that's.
Yeah. And there, by the way, December, we need to work, we may have a movie premiere that we have to show. Yes, we need, just don't let me forget about that. It's Andrea, don't let me forget about the movie. So, if I do premiere that we need to show it.
Since Andrea and I are gonna put it together, earlier is better. You guys have, certain things you want us to show you, prepare. This, Andrea and I are both doing other things, so we'd be happy to, so early, you guys can ready to.
Yes.
I want you to think of it.
Oh, you start the new year, you do it at the Aurora conference.
Yeah.
There we do, you're gonna be appreciative of that. All right.
Also scheduled to go to Redmond for airport meeting in June. And we're gonna try to work something in to come take on the vice place.
Yeah. We haven't been there, and I know that, you know, that's some hangar developments over there that's, you know, it's fun to see what's happening.
That's what's.
Redmond or Matters?
The meeting is in Redmond,
Okay.
but I thought we would have a field trip, a tour.
Over Matters,
Vice place, yeah.
We did after they think of this building. And working. But it's a great facility, it's not. Yes.
All right. What's happening in Portland, other than you guys got big things happening all over the place?
Construction is continuing, we're about 1/3 of the way through the major portions of construction. Just with the, again, still, May 2024 is when most of the expansion opens and completion of the project at the end of 2025. So be patient, there's still going to be impacts. Yeah. over the next year and a half. International air service is robust to Europe. North America.
Any word on Asia ever gonna open up again?
It's really dependent on the nations there, and so, what our airline partners are telling us, 2024. Or excuse me, not 2020.
Okay.
Next year, next spring. I'm sorry, I'm already skipping it out for a year. I'm hoping that next year doesn't happen. Yes, spring, summer of 2023. European travel has been very robust and very good. So the airline can serve those markets and really happy. North American international travel, North and Central America, really robust as well. Markets there are really very good. With our GA airports, we are doing major infrastructure and build growth projects. And I'll be working with Brad, everybody will be in the Travel Airport. On that education front, at some point, you know, the next couple of years, we have some great facilities.
Be fun to go see.
If we come to Portland next, you know, I'd love to host that in Hillsborough instead, and we take a tour. There's one part of the school program, one that is after, that's outside of the school system. That is great for one where they build the aircraft.
That would be great. I mean, we did, you know, when we got to Denver, come to see, because we actually had the gal that ran the program 4 or 5 years back, came over to talk to us as well. we've heard nothing.
So I know that normally the rotation sometimes comes to Portland area too.
Yeah.
It's easiest for everybody. And when you, I'm like to post it out there.
They're all-
Introduce you to some of the great programs.
And then Miss Vice Chair.
Well, I got most of the updates yesterday, but, we, we're just so fortunate that our council about the bill on the call, so. Yes, our parking lot is full, we've been lots of revenues coming in. That fund all of the projects.
So any national, I know you'll tie into the national level, any, things on the NBA front or just the national concern that you guys are talking about on the, coming up on the radar?
Yeah, so of course, we are really hoping that we can actually get a reauthorization session. My son, the board of AAA, so we put together legislative priorities along with these guys and forwarded those. Trying to get an early start on all of that. And then some of the things that we had forwarded, the FAA is our, so one of the initiatives. So I also shared that like our main initiative was work around the ACB programs. We haven't really a comprehensive review of those. If they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So FAA took that on all right. So we didn't have to get a legislative push. Now it's more comments, regulations.
Okay, well, super. Well,
I forgot to mention that too. I'm our TV manager for the week we're doing those two into our train. Full setting. We have 12 airplanes to do that for, so we have to do it per project, individual project, just to make sure that we're in compliance. And also we do like we really do like, and we reach out to all the small businesses that work with the state. And Kathy had helped me with that in the past, and now I'm training Andrea to help me out because the small business program is really important. So you guys will be seeing that in the future too.
And I think you're giving the experience. I think that's very helpful to us. It's like even information that may didn't quite know what to do with it, but we're.
It is great information and it's so thorough and it's really self-oriented. And even like for us, having airports in the most rural parts of the state, it's your to tell the FAA our story. Like we're going out and getting contractors with something to have to open for the metro area because there's no one in this small location, right? But absolutely, it was a great project. It wasn't the sexiest project, but it was, I thought it was possible.
So anything else?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all good, Kristen. Really? You're fine. Anything before we depart? We have lunch, pick your lunch up. And then feel free to enjoy, and I guess we'll see you all in December at 6. All right, we are adjourned.
Yes.